episode of Girls
and the City.
Yeah, we will work on that.
We'll work on our intro.
How are you?
I'm doing well. How about you?
Yeah, so it's been a rough week, busy. Just for a context, Elizabeth and I met last week in London.
Woo.
After a few months. We took some very cool pictures for our profile on social media. So hopefully you will see that soon.
Coming soon indeed.
And I think we had some fruitful discussions also for today's episode. So shall we dive in?
Yeah, totally. Do you want to intro us to the episode? The name is the episode is Bay of Married Pigs, right?
I actually don't know.
Okay, that's what I looked up and I saw. I mean, the name sounds a little offensive, I'm not going to lie, but tell us what the episode was about.
Yeah, I don't like the title. But anyway, the episode in itself, it's discussing a very interesting topic. A quick summary, Carrie is invited to her friends Peter and Patience Hampton's beach house, where she feels immediately the social divide between single and married life. But the pivotal shift happens when she has an awkward encounter with Peter, basically seeing him or bumping into him without his underwear inside of the house. And after the interaction, she's asked by Patience to leave the place and is basically left to wonder, if she would like to state that, whether single women are seen as threats to married couples and specifically to married women. We then later see that while doing her research for the column, some friends introduce her to Sean, aka the marrying guy, who is very clearly looking for a wife and serious commitment. But Carrie isn't feeling the vibe and slowly but surely understands that she needs to pull out of this relationship because he's just too much and too committed. And she recommends Sean to Charlotte, which is a very funny part of the episode, as they are both looking to getting married. But this quickly ends because of some China misalignment. And I would like to hear your thoughts about that. The seriousness of, like, if that really was the case, or they were just, like, not really vibing. And we have one more parallel story happening, which is Miranda and her interesting situation at work when a colleague introduced her to a lesbian Sid at the baseball game, assuming that Miranda is a lesbian because they never saw her with any guy. And she's then promptly welcomed by her work group and invited by her boss to attend a dinner party as a couple. Of course, you know, Miranda, being Miranda, can't really keep this charade for too long and eventually tells her boss she isn't lesbian and the real reasons behind why she acted the way she acted. But the dilemma she's basically being facing this episode is that the moment that all people at work understood that she is coupled up or that she is basically figured out by them that her chances to climb the ladder and get the promotion at the office is much easier. So we have like a couple of big parallel situations going on, and I would like to, I think, start with the actual topical question for this episode, which is there a kind of war between married couples and singles, and is there still the case? And I think let's open up the floor for discussion with Miranda's line, which is, when someone gets married, all bets are off, they become married and we become the enemy. Shoot, Elizabeth.
Tough questions. I mean, I kind of agree in the sense because, like, it obviously changes your life and it changes your dynamic, right? It's like for example, if one of our friends, I think, were to get married today, it's not like they're kind of entering into this union, right? They do everything together. It's like it's not an I, it's now a we, which is perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think their lifestyles do change for sure. So like you rarely see married couples like going out like to bars or like clubbing and things like that, right?
Unless they both like clubbing.
I guess, yeah, for sure. And I guess I'm completely generalizing here. But I think it does change people's dynamic and the friendships as well, right? Because I think if any of the main characters were to get married in the show, and I think some of them actually end up getting married later on, their lifestyles change. I think that's my perspective. How their dynamic changed with their friends is also, I think, quite significant. It's like they're just taking on a new step in their lives, so they just can't be themselves or like their old selves forever. Would you agree?
I mean, I think it's more about being in a relationship rather than being married or not. Obviously, when you're married, that's like a more serious confirmation of the relationship. But I do think that the change happens the moment you kind of get into a serious relationship. There are a lot of people who will change and adapt, and sometimes that's good, sometimes that's not good. I also observed it on myself. I think I definitely changed some of my activities I was doing because I was counting in the other person, right, when I was in a relationship. And I think that's natural. What is problematic, in my opinion, is once you change so much that it's not you anymore and your friends are not recognizing you. And there was actually a quote or a thought that I wrote down, which I need to find. But like there are always in these early episodes, they are interviewing different people. There is this quote that one woman being interviewed says that is when women become married, they forget who they are and everything becomes we. So
Yeah.
I was wondering, do we actually get lost in relationships? Is that a natural thing to do, or is that more reflecting the type of dynamic, power dynamic, and general healthiness of the relationship?
I mean, I personally think relationships kind of show a different side of people, right? It's like they're no longer just them independent, but it kind of shows, I guess, the like partnership side, if that makes sense. Because it's the same thing as well as like I think happens when people have kids. It's like they take on a different role. So I think it's just a different part of their character that's unlocked when they get into relationships. What do you think?
That's actually a good point. I did not think about it while I was watching the episode, but now when you said it made me remember some of the observations I had before, which is that I do think that different partners bring out different parts of yourself. And if the relationship is good, they actually empower the good things about you. Versus if the relationship is not necessarily so good for you, usually you will slightly become like the less desirable, or not desirable, but like the personality traits that are maybe less desirable, and you will become more visible. And I have one example which I will not go further into, but I do know one person where I literally observed this, that when they got together with one, like their partner, I kind of feel or have felt in that moment that this person changed to the worst version of themselves, and I was not very happy about it.
Yeah, I feel like that happens, which is interesting. I don't know. But we still have, like, in the rest of the episode, right, we have the dynamics between all of these, like, married couples and the so-known singles.
Yeah. So, I was actually wondering, how many friends of yours are married? Or like, do you have many married friends?
Yeah, and I think, okay, so full disclosure, like, I think this show, since they are in their 30s, we're lagging behind a little because we're a little younger. So I don't have as many married friends as, like, I think I will, like, 10 years down the line where we're kind of in the same age range as the characters.
Yeah.
I definitely have a couple, but again, you know, at our age, it's like you're a child bride.
I mean, I am slightly older than you, and I just had like this year there were 3 weddings.
Okay.
One of my friends' circle. So
They're
and
kicking off. Okay.
oh, like so I'm from, for the context of the listeners who don't know me, which is at the moment a very small number, but welcome. I'm originally from Slovakia, and my high school friends, basically almost all of them are married.
Oh,
now,
wow. All of them.
except one person, and she's in long term committed relationship. So it's almost like as she is married. And then there is me.
Fabulous.
No relationship and no
No
forced-
marriage.
Yeah, like very much single. But it was an interesting observation to go through because I went to a few weddings this year, and I mean they have all been with their partners for a very long time, like 5-6 years. So
Right.
I know all these people by heart now, but it definitely kind of puts the relationship or the people, at least in Slovak context, to like a different phase where they all started to talk about settling down and buying a house or moving somewhere where they can afford better accommodation, starting to think about kids and all this pretty serious adult discussions. And I don't think that any of them fear me because we are all friends, but I can definitely see a shift, and also how when you start to have this mindset, especially as a woman, it kind of might be feeling a little bit different to compared to single, women who are single, who still have this more like freestyle, free lifestyle and can do more or less what they want. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I don't know if it's like fear, but it's more like there are less stakes in their life in terms of commitment towards someone, and so it can also cause a little bit more on like a side of married women, a little bit more fear that if something goes wrong because the stakes are higher, they are just naturally more protective of the relationship or their man. I don't know.
Yeah. No, and I mean, it also, like, again, we can generalize it about it as well as, like, oh, like, married women are always very protective of their husbands. And I think we saw that quite a bit in the show of, like, oh, don't even look at my husband. Like, he's my territory kind of thing. But there also, I think, are different couples in the sense that they almost have, like, a fear of missing out, absolute FOMO, when it comes to singles. And that's why they love, like, prying on their stories of, like, their crazy dating lives. And I have a few friends like that. Like, they're married, but they love hearing about like my chaotic dating life and being like, oh my God, did that actually really happen? So I think like there are different dynamics of those relationships.
And it's also usually what you want, what you don't have, right? So all single people are striving to be in a relationship, and then once you are in committed relationship, you kind of feel like you want to hear about the singles.
Yeah.
And
what else is out there?
Exactly, because it's like, I would say, more unpredictable, more exciting to hear that part of life. So I think it's always the grass is greener on the other side.
Right.
But you know, like this kind of goes or like brings me to my next point, which is different. You know, like the Carrie is basically dating the guy, even though I think like early on in the episode we get the understanding that she knows it's not it.
Right.
but because it's better than nothing, she kind of continues to...
I mean, it's part of research, right?
Is it? Or is it just that it was kind of comfortable until it wasn't?
Yeah.
And it was that fair towards him? Because I think his intentions were very clear from the beginning, versus she was just testing it out.
Yeah, and I mean, okay, that's also, I'm kind of more of a Carrie in this situation because I understand people do date with the intention of getting married, but you can't come in the first date being like, all right, will you marry me? You kind of have to try on the relationship, right? It's like, I also like to date with intention of like, yeah, hopefully this turns into a future together, but from day one, you can't be expecting them to like fully commit to you. So you have to like test it out for a little bit. But I mean, I guess she could have been clear of like, oh, I'd rather we date first. But I think that should kind of be an unspoken rule, right? Because it's also weird how they met, right? It was like a matchmaking situation by her friends that apparently happened on accident, but it was absolutely set up.
Yeah. What do you think about that? The whole discussion about arranged... Let's not push it marriages.
Arranged dates, at least.
Arranged dates, yeah. Like at some point, everyone around is coupled up, and they just want you to be coupled up as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've never been in such a situation, so I can't really speak from experience. But I can imagine how awkward that is, especially, right, if you think that, especially if your friends are not super close, that's what it seemed like the couple was. They don't really know your type, who you're into. They just know, like, oh, I know I have a single friend and a guy that wants to get married. Let's just have them meet. Again, I don't think that really happens nowadays. Like, have you been in that situation? Have heard of any of your friends being in that situation?
No, but maybe we are just too young for it yet, you know?
Maybe we'll get around to it.
But, I mean, how is that different from dating apps, really? Because, like, you match based on some criteria versus here, people who know you more or less will match you with someone that they think you might match.
It's still less awkward because I don't think, like, especially with your friends, like, there's kind of almost an obligation that you have to go and pursue them, right? Whereas with dating apps, you can chat for a bit, and then if you do get on, you can, you know, take it to that next stage. But I think, like, because you're kind of set up, it's from the very get-go, it's like very awkward.
I mean, first dates are always awkward, don't you?
Yeah.
Like, let's set that as a fact. But
that's true.
I think that when there is this additional expectation from outside party, aka your friends, then you kind of feel a little bit more obliged even to like try and make it work, or like more uncomfortable that someone is hoping that it will make and work out.
No, I think so. Yeah, and that's, I think, like, puts that almost like unnecessary pressure on it, right?
Yeah, and well, we discussed this off mic, but bringing it back to on mic conversation.
Yeah.
When there is too much pressure coming, I think in any type of relationships, like at the beginning or later on, it's never really a good thing.
Yeah. It just shouldn't be forced.
Yeah, exactly. So, I did some Reddit research, and I will read some of the quotes that people contributed or wrote down. So, first thing is, I never understood why Patience would be mad at Carrie for her husband casually flaunting his junk around, but I guess that's the logic the show hinges upon, that married people find single toxic to their marriage. So I think she's bringing a valid point, being like, why she's mad at Carrie when she didn't do anything wrong, but it was more like her husband that walked around. Did you feel like, do you agree with that, or do you feel differently?
I don't know. I honestly don't know who's at fault in this situation. Like, it's just a weird circumstance.
Yeah, because I mean, if I am married or have a partner and we have a friend visiting us, I don't think...
No one's walking around naked.
Exactly. Like, isn't that just basic understanding?
Yeah, and I think that's why I was like so awkward, but also like, well, I personally, if I'm trying to advocate for patients here, it's like, why would my husband do that if she didn't entice it? So she's maybe thinking like, oh, my like New York friend who's like having this wild life and told him about like her stories the night before. She like provoked him to do this, right? Blaming the woman in this case. But it's also like her husband just being an idiot. Like, why is he not dressed?
Yeah. I mean, we obviously don't know the background of their friendship and how close of friends they are. But to me, it was really weird that she got mad at Carrie and didn't say, or at least we did not see anything with regards to the husband.
And then they saw them later at that party, which was also awkward because then obviously Carrie told all of her friends about it.
Yeah, I mean, Samantha again.
Love Samantha. Love
Yeah,
Samantha.
when she does her stuff, it's just amazing.
Yeah, because apparently she's like, I slept with half of this room, basically.
Yeah.
Icon.
Anyway, there is another interesting point, which I think is going a little bit deeper, and I want to hear your thought about this, because I did not think about this, but I think it's very valid. So, Carrie just didn't understand why. Can we all stop to think if maybe Big would have done this when Miranda was at their house, we would never hear the end of it from Carrie.
Ooh. Would Big actually do that, though?
Well, I don't think he would.
Yeah.
He's just a different person. But if it was more like an accidental bumping into each other.
Yeah. But I don't know. Carrie would not blame Miranda for it. That's what I'm saying. Like, she would, yeah, it would be absolute chaos and she'd talk about it, but I don't think she would blame her friend for it.
I'm not sure.
Interesting. Okay, so you think she would?
I don't know if she would necessarily blame her, but she would not stop talking about it because she's obviously not feeling secure in the relationship.
Yeah.
And it kind of goes back to maybe why there is this perceived war that if you are not feeling secure in a relationship with your partner, you will perceive threat even in situations when there is none.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it could cause for more chaotic situations.
So, and we've seen Carrie being unreasonable on many occasions. So I don't think she would completely blame it on Miranda, but she would definitely question her, being like, what were you doing in that? Maybe if she would like randomly open the door or something like that, you know?
Yeah, I mean, she'd ask her, but I don't know if that would go as far as like, oh, leave my house, you know? And I think it goes back to because like her and Miranda are much closer friends and there's a much like better baseline understanding, whereas like her and Patience, I don't know, like we don't even know how they met. Like she just said that they were friends that used to live in New York and now live in like the Hamptons.
Yeah, so basically conclusion is Sex and the City, please give us more context when you do this episode because it's hard to analyze.
We can't get down to the deep of it. But what about like the other point of it, like now that we're on the topic of Miranda, like her faking that relationship just to kind of climb the corporate ladder. I think that's like a super interesting piece of it.
And I wrote down my notes, but I want to hear your thoughts on this first. Do you think that's a thing?
I mean, I don't know, from at least my personal experience, everyone that I work with is pretty much either in like, long-term relationships or is married. I don't know if I'm perceived differently because I'm not. But I have heard of like people do prefer to hire like, actually this is probably a more modern take, but like single people because they don't have like families or responsibilities to go and take care of, so hence they can work longer.
Ooh, I mean, this is opening a completely different...
Which is the opposite of what exactly is happening with Miranda, right? Because like in her case, it's like, oh, her firm values like people that they can actually spend time with and invite to dinner parties and like build better relationships because they're in kind of a relationship. But it's also like, oh, they're our token lesbian couple.
So my thought on this was that it's like, I don't think it's so much a thing anymore, but I also think that this is very specific to the industry. So we both work in a rather like startup vibe or like young company.
Totally.
type of environment. But if you imagine to be working for a law firm where a lot of your colleagues and or higher ups are men, older men, I do think that it changes the situation. And I don't know how well this still would be a case because I have never worked in this environment. But I also think that it's different. And maybe one thing that I observed, I mean, from when I was in my last relationship, my last partner, he used to work in a big financial institution, and I really noticed one thing, that everyone from his colleagues was in a relationship. Like, it didn't matter
Yeah.
whether they were young or old; they were all in a relationship.
Yeah.
And that was almost as of like weird, because first of all, it almost felt like, how is it possible that no one is single even if they were on junior positions? So maybe it attracted certain type of people. And second thing is, when we were invited to places, I think the fact that we were in a couple helped sometimes, because it would just work better in that rather, serious and traditional office type of I don't even know how to describe it, like very similar environment than what we saw in the episode.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get that's the case, and like I guess people do trust people more who are like have a partner and like are a secure relationship and have those like almost family values that they bring to the company, because I don't know, maybe they take their job more seriously because they're kind of investing in their future, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it's also interesting. I don't know if like, would you go as far as to, if for example someone said that like, oh, you can't have this promotion because I don't know, like they're not gonna obviously explicitly say it because you're single, but would you go as far as to date someone so you can actually bring someone to a dinner party so that people would have more faith in you and have more trust in you as like an employee?
Uh,
And that's a loaded question.
so prefix first. I think it happens. I think it's not that much about being promoted as it's more like socializing. So I
Right.
think that it is easier if you are working in an environment where everyone is coupled up, if you're also in a couple. And then if you are working in an environment where everyone is single, it's easier to being single. I don't think it has any much of a connection with climbing a ladder. But again, that's just my very limited experience from like a rather traditional working environment. If I would have done something like this, honestly, I don't know. I
Yeah.
think it would depend on the situation and the state of my mind and my messiness of my mind at that point. And what would be the stakes, Like,
That's true.
Would I be like so irritated that I'm being in the same position for years and suddenly I see this light at the end of the tunnel? I don't know. I don't think what she did was morally wrong. I think it wasn't sustainable. But I understand
Totally.
why she did it, because she definitely saw her value, that she's good, but
Yeah.
somehow she still wasn't promoted. And based on the episode, the explanation for that was because people didn't figure her out.
Yeah. And I mean, people do love to figure people out. But it's also, I think, weird because they kind of pushed her in that setting, in the work setting, right? They met at a corporate baseball game where like, oh, we think you guys would get along. So they obviously made a ton of assumptions about her, which were like not really accurate. So it's like she, I think, felt double the pressure because obviously they're trying to set them up, and then
Would you do that?
be set up at work.
No. The question you asked me, like,
Oh, would I bring someone? I mean, I think I would kind of be like Miranda in this case. I would be super transparent with the person, obviously.
yeah.
Just because I don't want them to be like, feel like they're a part of this game that they didn't sign up for. But I think, I think the reason she did it is just to really stick it to them that like she's just as good on her own as she is with a partner. So I would do it for that point, just to like prove a point, honestly.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it was a situation that I'd actually have to do that, but, you know.
I still feel like it's not so prevalent in today's world. Like, I don't
Totally.
think your promotion is being not pushed because you are not in a couple. I
Yeah.
think there are other issues that might happen, and maybe, like the fact that you are not the boss's favorite. I think there are all these like natural human biases, but I don't feel like this one is such a big thing.
No, totally. And I'm thinking about even, again, me at work. It's like, yeah, obviously my coworkers talk about like their partners and their like relationships. I really don't want, because I think I'm just probably overly professional. I don't share that at work. But at the
Yeah.
same part, like I could also see someone being like, oh, I don't know how to have her figured out because she's never talked about that side of her life. And I do think that there is like, not like, maybe it is a subconscious bias, but people do like to hire and work with people that are kind of similar to them or like-minded in a sense. So if
Yeah.
you can have them figure it out, if you have like, yeah, they're in a relationship, I'm in a relationship, it's more relatable. I can see how that makes them feel a little more trusting of you. But I don't think that's, again, a deal breaker if people are conscious about the fact, like, yeah, I'm hiring this person regardless of their personal life.
Now you made me think, like, to what extent that was just that she's not being figured out versus to what extent that was that just Miranda wasn't sharing anything private about
Yeah.
her with the colleagues, and so they felt they are not so connected.
Right.
And that's, I think, is very important part when you actually want to get promotion at some point. It's about relationships you build rather than your performance. And so doing this kind of enabled her colleagues to know a little bit of
About her.
Miranda outside of work.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's perfectly fine, as well as like, again, I personally think people should get promoted on their merit, but at the same time, I do get that aspect that you have to have faith in the person and their kind of values and how they like problem solve things, right? But yeah, I still think there is still like, she's extremely professional, and I kind of align with her on that. Like, you don't have to overshare at work in order for people to trust you.
Yeah, definitely. So I want to kind of prefix this discussion we have with one post that I read in Huffington Post. It's from 2011, but it really fits with the topic that we are discussing. It's about Elizabeth Taylor and a lesson from her. The title is literally the Liz Taylor lesson. Why do women crave marriage even when it doesn't always serve us well? Did you know that Elizabeth was married 8 times?
I know she was married a couple of times, but I didn't know it was 8. Impressive.
Yeah. So, according to the author, many women share stories of their divorces involving husbands who showed clear signs of avoidance or dishonesty from the start, including Elizabeth. There were like a lot of marriages where it didn't work out, and even if that happened, she kept looking and getting married. But despite red flags like infidelity, unemployment, or lying, women pursued marriage due to being in love. And the question, or like the overarching conclusion, was women like to get married.
Interesting.
But why? And the author gives these 3 reasons, or 2 reasons, sorry. First is tradition. Historically and culturally, that's what we did as women. And biology plays also a big role, according to the author. So, as the primitive parts of our brain drive instinctive behavior that once favored women bonding with a male for survival, we have this tendency from the evolution that still plays a big role, even if we are not dependent on men for survival anymore. So, how do you feel about this? Do you agree?
Oh, we're just all lover girls. That's honestly my take. No, I kind of agree in that sense. Like, I mean, why would she get married 8 times? Like, clearly, who doesn't love love? Like, who does not love being in love? Obviously,
But even if it doesn't serve you, you know, like that.
No, I know, but it's always like it's a gamble, right? If you're not willing to love, or you're not like willing to open up to someone else, you're kind of like isolating yourself from like this wonderful feeling, right? But at the same time, it's an absolute huge risk. It's a pretty high chance you're going to get hurt. But in that case, like, not serving us well, I mean, I'm trying to understand what that even means, because like, besides getting hurt and heartbroken,
what the author meant is that all the women that were interviewed as a part of this article, they expressed that despite the fact that they saw red flags in the men, like infidelity, unemployment, or lying to them, they still went and got married.
Love all the hopeless romantics out there. I mean, I think it's partially because people, believe that people can be better, or people can change.
Or just being naive because they being in a couple is better than being alone.
Totally. And the rose-colored glasses, you know, we love to oversee the red flags sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, I think we saw this very well also during COVID, that we need not the intimacy, but social connection, human connection.
Totally.
And I think it kind of goes back to all of these topics we discussed, that based on the research that I've done, but also just, I think, healthy observation when you live and look around, is that we are, humans are social creatures, and we do better in general when we are in some kind of community or tribe. And I think that marriage or relationships have become the base, like the unit like the base unit for understanding the tribe or community, right? Like building this deep bond with someone.
Yeah.
And even though sometimes it doesn't serve us, we still pursue it because of this deeper need or craving of belonging to something. Or I'm going very deep now.
I love it.
I'm thinking out loud. I'm also speaking from my own feeling about this and how I perceive relationships. That ultimately I want to find someone which will become my family in a way, right?
Right.
So there are there in good times, and there are there in bad times, because it's just nicer to go through life with someone than alone.
For sure. And I mean, this goes, I think, even beyond like romantic relationships, but every relationship is tested like through its ups and downs. Like, I've always been seeing these videos on Instagram of just like, oh, nothing tests like a true like friendship or relationship other than like the chaos of traveling. And I think that actually brings such a good point. Is like, you kind of have to go through the thick and thin of it, through like the good and the stressful, and, you know, all kinds of emotions and feelings in order to see if you
don't
can
you have a friend that always does this, or I'm mixing with someone else?
I mean, test friendships.
No, like test new relationships with guys, that they would always go for holidays, and that's basically like an ultimate test whether she will continue or not. I might be mixing it with someone else. No,
that's a really good idea.
I did it recently with one of the guys I was seeing.
Yeah.
We've spent a weekend together, and it was informative.
Informative, yeah. No, every single second date should be a trip. As long as they're not a sociopath, we have to figure out that first.
Go for the trip right away, you know? I got the message the other day.
I kind of love that. I feel like we should experiment with that a little bit.
Now I'm going deep into my privacy, my dating life. I received a message on the dating app the other day, asking me to go for a date to Dubai.
Oh my god, that's a bit of a far flight. I don't know. I was thinking of somewhere, I don't know, maybe in the UK, like a day trip or something, but Dubai.
Exactly.
Maybe like wait for the fourth date.
And I responded to it like, isn't that a little bit of a stretch for a first date? I have not heard back.
I see.
Why?
Did they retract their offer? Crazy. crazy. No, we should do that. I would love to do that. That's actually hilarious.
What, go to Dubai for first day?
No, maybe not Dubai, but like a shorter trip.
No, I do think you should go for a couple of days first, just to understand whether the person is the actual person they are.
Totally. Like, do a little background check, do a little due diligence
Exactly.
here and there. I don't know, get a couple reference letters, and then you can go.
But living with someone, even if it's for 2 days, tells you so much about them.
Absolutely. And I mean, I know if everyone wants to present like them, like their best selves at the very beginning, but at the same time, like, what are you waiting for? Like, you know,
We are just getting older. You don't have so much time, so just get on.
getting older. I don't know. Is anyone in a rush?
Subtle advice from the
Subtle
older
advice.
of us two.
What do you mean? You're also just a baby.
Yes, forever. Well,
Yeah.
you know, the trick is to always date older.
That's true. That's how you game the clock.
Yes, so you always feel like you're the younger one.
There you
Anyway.
go. So I have a question. Wait, as we were like wrapping up. So now that we've established, like, is there, first of all, we didn't answer, we need to answer the question, is there a cold war between the singles and the married? But
Yeah,
then
do
my
you wanna give
second,
the answer?
I mean, I personally don't,
The answer of the series is we are the same, but somehow ended up on the opposite sides.
yeah. And it kind of got me asking the second question of like, is it better to be single or is it better to be married or like in a long-term committed relationship? We don't care about the paperwork. And like, I still don't know the answer. Because
Well,
like,
I will read the Carrie's ending line of this episode, which I think nicely kind of elaborates on your thought or question.
okay.
She says, sure, it would be great to have that one special person to walk home with, but sometimes there is nothing better than meeting your single friends for a movie night.
You can
And I think
still
that-
meet your single friends though.
Exactly. So what I mean is, and I think she's not saying it's one or the other. I think
Okay.
it's nice to have that person, but you should not replace
Oh yeah.
your friendships and like who you are outside of the relationship.
Absolutely. And I've obviously had like a number of friends who the moment they get into a relationship, they're like poof and they're gone for months. Because it is a serious thing. It is like taking up a lot of your time, attention, and your like even brain capacity at this point. But I totally agree that you have to find a way to balance it, because then I think one way or another it just drive you crazy.
Yes, I can confirm. And I think that, you know, like in theory, we are being very smart here, but in practice, sometimes you lose sense.
Just forget it.
Like,
Yeah.
exactly, like the balance is just off. And until someone, usually your really good friends, tell you that you are being weird, you might not even realize. And this is why it's so important to keep the friends in. Because even if you derail a little bit, they will for sure tell you.
Yeah.
It's
No,
good,
they'll be
it's not
honest.
good. Yeah. Good. So, do you want to add something else to the conclusion? That
No, I think that pretty much sums it up pretty well. But
sounds
I
very
mean,
boring, but very true.
it's not. It's not. I mean, like, there's obviously different phases in your life. Like right now, I am single. It's like a fun life. I
and
do
ready
get
to mingle.
I mingle all the time. What are you talking about? But yeah,
See? There was a confirmation coming from
Marvin
you.
confirms. My sweet dog Marvin, to everyone who doesn't know. But yeah, like, but then again, is anyone in a rush to get married? I don't think so. I hope not, because it's not like a good intention to come into a relationship with being like, oh, I just want this for the marriage and like for my picture perfect like family. I
I
think
do think there is unfortunately still a lot of people who do that for the sake of
totally,
being
totally.
married.
But I think they actually end up being like quite unhappy in the long
Yeah.
term, because they were just trying to get someone into a mold
Like
that they weren't fitting
meet
into.
their own perception of great life instead of actually living the life.
Yeah. No, I'd rather like meet a best friend and then marry a best friend, I think.
Yeah, I think that definitely will have the highest chance to survive long term
Totally.
and also survive the hardships.
Yeah. Though
By the
I am
way-
an absolute lover girl, so I'll fall for anything. Just kidding.
Yes, I can confirm again.
But you were saying.
We are both coming from the Eastern Europe, but I think there are some slight differences between us.
Yeah.
For
I mean,
example, this one. Why do I talk like a robot? I don't know. No, I mean, let's close this. But like, I want to ask you like one final question.
Uh-huh.
This conclusion that the episode has, which is we are the same, but somehow ended up on the opposite side.
Mm-hmm.
Do you find it sufficient? Because I find it really weird. Like, what does that even mean?
What does that even mean? No, I think they're the same in the sense that like the whole idea of the grass seems greener on the other side. It's like one wants what the like what you can't have, and it's vice versa, and that's like the similarity there. But on different sides, in terms of like, yeah, they do see things from completely different perspectives. Like their point of view and their like worldview is just completely different because of their positions in their relationships. I think that's how I interpreted it.
And do you agree with that as like
I
an answer to
think
the
so.
question?
I mean, yeah, I think so. Because I think it's still quite open-ended and open to interpretation, which I kind of like. But at the same time, it's not saying one is better than the other. But I don't think there is a Cold War, except for, yeah, if you talk to, like, the whole scenario of the party when it was like, oh, don't talk to my husband, like, sweetie, we have to go. That was a lot, but I do think that comes back to, like, yeah, how secure you are in that relationship and
Yeah.
in your marriage. And so I think that's, like, the Cold War aspect comes from within that couple.
And exactly that's what I wanted to also say, because I think that the answer is more about it's less about the singles than it's about the actual married couple and
Yeah.
how secure and how not trustworthy, but how much you trust the other person. And the less of that there is, the more you will fear and create this, I think, negative energy towards maybe people that are outside of the relationship and you potentially perceive as a threat.
Yeah. Like, you're projecting your own insecurities upon a situation where, like,
Exactly.
they were just happened to be in.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Great.
And don't have your husbands flashing your friends. That's, I think, another lesson.
Well,
learned.
if that happens and the husband seems to be unbothered, then maybe you should understand a little bit more the psychological state of
Go
your
to couples
husband.
therapy.
Yeah, or maybe just his therapy to start with, because I mean, unless you have very specific interested in, group activities.
Yeah, I mean, hey, no one's
Then
judging.
it's fine.
But if it's
But
just
if it's-
uninvited, just don't flash your friends. Just uninvitedly. If they ask you to, do it.
Which, by the way, I think Samantha would definitely do.
Oh yeah, 100%. She'd love every second of it.
Yeah.
Goodness.
What episode?
I think that closed it. Yeah. Set it for the
Yeah,
next
yeah.
one. I mean, the next episode, I got the name. It's called The Valley of 20-something guys.
Oh,
I'm excited. I'm excited.
I know this is gonna be an interesting one because also the perspective that Carrie is having there, we
Yeah.
kind of are not there yet in terms of age, but I think we still can.
I mean,
Like, it's
hey,
gonna be-
we're in our late
no.
20s. Anyone in their early 20s to me still seems like
Exactly.
a teenager. So I think we can still
Exactly.
relate.
Yeah. All right. I'm excited for the next episode then.
Awesome. Me too. Me too.
Thank you for listening to us.
We'll be
Well,
back.
we'll be back. See you soon or hear you soon. Bye.